The way I know and I work with Corbusier, he was a humanist, not only utopian in a sense. The whole idea is that he was talking about creating architecture appropriate for the time, the changing times, technology, lifestyle, demands, production, aspirations, etc. So he first thing he did was when he got the commission to design Chandigarh, and the first time that I met him, he said, I would like to have pact with nature. And I think this is a very fundamental answer that he has given. He's talking now about nature, nature in which human beings are there, birds are there, animals are there, rains are there, climate is there, ecosystem is there. So when an architect of a utopian times talks about ecology, and then he says that I would like to have not only pact with nature, but I would also like that people there are happy and they are celebrating life. They are enjoying their livelihood. So all that we should do in a city, they must rejoice. So you must have time. So you save time, you save your energies, you find community association, and you work through nature all the time. So Chandigarh is full of trees, gardens, walkways, and a very simple, clear transport line. The rest was mostly pedestrian. There are sectors, there are communities, there are landscape places, there are institutions, there are markets. All of them are woven so that the life really becomes harmonious. When you come home, you go to bazaar, you go to your family, spend time with children, you go to museum. Now they are all interconnected. So the city really became a living organism in which the house was one insular, one element of habitat. So he created that kind of world, and that is why it is even beautiful today. When you go there, you feel very comfortable. The other thing was he separated transport network in variety of scales. The speed is changing. So there is a speed of the cyclist, a motorcycle, a private car, or a pedestrian. Everybody was safe, everybody was comfortable, and everybody had nice location to live. This is really what the principle he followed, and I think that is what Chandigarh is about. I went to Corbusier's office. The first thing he had was on a blackboard, on his board, a climatic chart for India. Chandigarh. What is the climatic chart talks about? It talks about every month temperature, humidity, the kind of the climate, the rains, wind direction, all these things were part of this. The other thing was how people will live, where will they walk, where will they go, where will they work, and then recreation and culture. So everything that we are talking about is living, working, moving, and celebrating life. He talked about Indian families, the way Indian families live, the way Indian economy really controls or guides, the lifestyle. How the people, with temperature control, how do you really create comfort conditions inside and outside? So all those things were written there on the climate, and that is what architecture is supposed to do. Architecture, you must first of all write down what you want to get, create that table, and then try to follow and say, how does it affect life? How does it affect your movement? How does it affect your time? How does it affect the energy utilization? All these things I learned from Corbusier when I was first time in Paris. The land which is there, the farmer who is there, and there is an industrial worker who lives in a metropolis. They both are working. But how much time each one is spending from their home to the place of work? How much work do they do, and what is it that is benefiting them? The other thing is what kind of a role institutions play in life of people and the children and family. So one is work, other is place of living, Third one is how do you get culture, recreation and culture, etc. And then how do you really get into the kind of life or the aspiration that you have? I think these are the first questions that we must ask. So the moment we start talking about it, then we can see where they are located, how they can be integrated, and how we can really use them fruitfully. I mean, in Bangladesh also, the conditions are similar. You have a huge amount of population working. Now, where they are working, where they are living, how they are living, and then what is it that they are getting the benefit. And then there are also lands with water, lands with agriculture. What is happening to them? Now, we as architects, we never look at them as one element, one condition. It's like a one plate, and we have to find a way to see because the transport, movement, the kind of connection that is moved, all those things are required, and we need to study this. I am physically here. Am I modern or am I not modern? Am I working or not working? I think we cannot separate this at all. There is no distinction. You are what you are. Your thought is there. How you spend your time, how do you work, and what kind of work do you do, and are you satisfied or not? I think this is all connected to that one body. So if I was living, now I live in a house which has built 60 years ago. I go to the school which is only 10 minutes away, walking distance. My office is another 10 minutes or 20 minutes. And I spend my time like this and go and enjoy my life. So one has to decide where does your energy go and what kind of time and energy, and then whom do you meet, whom do you interact. So I go to school. When I was going along, now I have retired, but basically going to the school was 10 minutes. I would go and meet the student there. I would meet the faculty. From there, another 15 minutes, and I'm in my office. Now, relationship, is to be decided by us. It is not anybody else. I think physical constraints have to be overcome through our own ways. And I think that is the way I enjoyed working. Then other thing is, where do you find friends of like-minded thoughts, creating wealth, and happiness? And those index we have to put together. And that is how we should look at the plan. I go to the school campus and there is a walking, you can walk for an hour in the morning. So you have a garden, you have a lot of trees there. So environment wise, I have the environment which is suitable to me, and I have adjusted to that condition, and I have reorganized my lifestyle according. I think this is what I have done. I spend a lot of time in teaching and meeting people and meeting professionals. And a lot of people come from outside. Our practice also should have research. Our practice should also have a participation of citizens. Now, those things, are there. And I did that in the earlier period. And I didn't want to go to metros like Delhi or Bombay, because that is not what I would enjoy. I would prefer to fruitfully use my time. I think the moment we start using computers and internet and other tools which are technologically oriented, our movements reduce, our dialogues reduce, our discourses get reduced. And I think that is one thing which I think is not a very healthy. What we need to know is not only in the room that you work and you learn, but also look at the world outside your office and outside your time. It is good to know where you are, what is your place, who are the people that you are going to affect or you are going to be useful. Now, all these things have to be constant in our life. If I have always a computer in front of me and I work with high tech and everything I design, then end of the day, I am enclosed only with that world, but I don't know really what real world is. We are a biological entity. We love trees, we love gardens, we love to see animals, we love to see birds. We want to feel the breeze on our skin. We like to be standing in the rain or hot sun. Now, all these things are reducing, and I think that is where the whole issue is. Practice is one part, philosophy is another, but most of the emphasis for me is how do you live your physical, biological, emotional, cultural life. And I think that is really what I would ask for all of us. I mean, you're in Dhaka, then you're in Bangladesh, but by the time you travel from your place to live and place to work, you already spend an hour and a half or whatnot. And then you come and you are tired and you don't have much time. And then you have pressures and you work on weekends. Where are we? I think that has never been our culture. Production is one part, but inner satisfaction, the spiritual content is extremely important. I admire, first of all, Mr. Mazharul Islam as a human being, as a sensitive architect, a humanist, and his work is as good, if not better. His work is excellent. It demonstrates his philosophy of life. A soft-spoken, highly sensitive, highly cultured. I think what I'm trying to say is poetry, literature, art, meeting scholars, meeting humanists, philosophical life, discussing this. I think for an architect, that is the life which we must live. And we must find a way to spend time into that. And I think that is how Mr. Mazharul Islam lived. And he talked about this, where is the poetry? Where is the literature? Where are those songs? Where is Rabindra Sangeet that you have? I mean, all those things, which were there, which are still there, but we are not putting them in a part of our culture. That where is that in the academics? What is the meaning of living life fully? I think that should be the question for us wherever we are, whatever size and scale in which we live. This is an important thing. How do we spend our time? Are we rejoicing? Are we becoming like nature? If the nature is not in the natural place, it will wilt, it will not grow, it will not blossom. What about us? We have forgotten that we are a biological, emotional entity, and we also like to live the way nature or the animal or the other world lives, biological world. So practice is one part, and then it reflects on the work. I think Mr. Mazharul Islam's work is sensitive because he was thinking about the local earth, the material, the technology, the people's movement, the kind of view that he would set up, or the surrounding master plan in which he would create open and enclosed spaces, the relationship between them and the buildings. All those things he had done. And during that period, brick was a very common thing. But everybody concerned, there were no technologies, so breeze has to come. Now we get air conditioning and we close everything. So what is it that we have done? What about the breeze? So it is the same thing that what we were thinking, he was thinking. And I was very happy to meet him often because we had the same wavelength. The first thing I would say is Rabindranath Tagore, Shanti Niketan, and his life and the kind of university that he started to talk about, and the kind of poetry and the literature and the large work, that he did. And there is something called Indian culture. In that Indian culture, there is called Navarasas. All the rasas, are there together. You can't isolate one or the other. Nature has fruit, and that fruit is complete with all the rasas, all the essential ingredients. And that's how life is. And so Rabindranath Tagore for me, and so when I was doing SEPT, all the time I was thinking about Rabindranath Tagore and Shantiniketan, because I said, if I have architecture, but what about art? What about music? What about literature? We used to empty the hall and create musicians for them to come and sing. So all those things came from Rabindranath Tagore. The other one was my grandfather, who taught me about Mahabharata. We had an education of Mahabharata, and I was impressed by Karna and Yudhishthir, and the kind of role that Lord Krishna played. And so there one talks about karma, work, religion, kind of responsibilities, conflicts that come up in life. So for me, that he was the other one, and my uncle-in-law was a great scholar, and he talked to me about politics of India at that time, and he was a Gandhian, so he talked about Gandhi a lot, and I think for me, Gandhiji was another person who talked about this, and always I remember the spinning wheel. How can you become self-sustainable? How can every individual become self-sustainable? And I think this is one thing that spinning wheel, anybody who has a spare time can go and spin and create cotton and a thread. So simple life, simple living, high thinking, and completely coordinated. So when I see them four together, I was getting so much, for example, like Karna and Krishna, then you talk about them, and then you talk about Rabindranath Tagore, and then you talk, because this is really our culture. And I have a feeling that if these people were not there, I would have lost myself. For me, they are my anchors. They are my spirits. And from them, I have learned everything. For example, if I have to do architecture, I would ask sustainability. I would ask the kind of lifestyle that is there. He was explaining to me, house cannot be there without an integral lifestyle. Built form is only an enclosure. Neighbors are very important, the social life. So social, cultural, economical, technological, all those things are there. And how do you really create this? You need to have institutions. An institution doesn't need to be a big campus. Institution means that even in the house, you teach your children stories. You talk to them about beliefs. You talk to them about behavior. So when you do all this, then you are part of that process. So those four models, and then I went to him almost 6 months to read Bhagavad Gita. Every morning, 2 hours, I would be with him. And the idea was to just know what are the values, what are the scriptures say, what is it that is talking about. Because what is your measure? I think one of the important questions that we may ask is, who are we? What is it that we are standing for? What is the purpose of our life? And how would we live our life for the next 10, 20 years? And in that, can we really look at our leaders or the poetry of our country or the leaders of our country and what is it that they did? And I think that is where these four people come into picture, like Rabindranath, because you have to have time and you have to have that culture and that has to be spent. So those are the things which we talk about. So four role models made my career and my attitude to life and my philosophy. This is what I have learned from. I think that more and more I learned, the real word is not architecture, real word is habitat. And I'm sure in Bengal or Bengali also there is a word, the Nivas. So the idea is that is your shelter. That is where not only you are going to live, but you are going to perpetuate life. You will have children and you will have grandchildren and you will have other people around and your life is going to blossom in that place. So you are a gardener. In that gardener, you are going to create this garden, which is your home. And that home has to be like a gardener who goes there, plucks only what is not essential, gives fertilizers, gives manures, gives love, so that they really create blossom. The idea is if the house has flowers and if the flowers have fragrance, what more do you ask? All the rest is not correct. So the living and inert, the distinction is between the living things and the inert thing, the static and the dynamic. Intuition, because I always listen to meditation. When you go and sit quietly, suddenly the ideas come, thoughts come. Very often your insights are very important. So if you want to really listen to yourself first, so learn to listen to the inner signals. You are traveling, you are meeting, you are going around, and suddenly something everything fascinates you. And that fascination is haunting. And when that haunting comes, then you have a desire. And when that desire comes, you want to act on it. That is intuition. Intuition is your inner voice. What Gandhiji would call is my inner voice. The inner voice is the one which is your true self. That inner voice is what you have been brought here for. And that inner voice is what intuition is. They are insights, sudden flash. Suddenly you remember, oh yes, I should do that. It is an inner calling of your soul. And I think that is what you must get it. In all creative work, insights play a major role. They are the guides. And not only that, but they are the guides which are of a very finer quality. They have no material value, but they are the values which are very important. So intuition only can come when you are totally relaxed, when you are listening to your own self, when you are pondering. And I think that is the time you are yourself. Otherwise, you are from the other world, the outside world, the material world. That's the spiritual aspect of life. All creations, all great works. Rabindranath Tagore had 4,000 creations in Shantiniketan. The reason was that each season had its own peculiarity. And that peculiarity was in that environment. So he wanted to really connect with that subtle nuance. And that, I think, was his poetry. That is where he found the beautiful words and the beautiful language and the thoughts that he created. A guru or a teacher, somebody who is, first of all, the a good teacher is the one whose instinct is telling to impart what he knows. Like a pujari, the person who goes to a religious ceremony and devotes himself to the God, but he gives everything of himself to the deity. And the whole idea is he really going to give what he knows, what he feels, and what are his insights? And I think a good teacher has those, and the kind of vyavahar, the kind of dealing of business or daily activities and outwardly activities are less. So he is more spiritual, more giving, and expecting less and less, except that the student must grow better than him. And I think that is called offering. So the teacher whom I would select, who would offer himself fully without thinking of time or money or what is he going to get as returns. This is what my definition of a good teacher is, that he is fully devoted and he's rejoicing. He's in ecstasy because he wants to give. He's learning and he's giving. He's learning and he's giving. He's like a mother. So that is the first part of this. The other one is research is something in which people are not going at all, but they don't want to find out what is the cause of what has happened. We don't have in India research on architecture or in habitat or in lifestyle. We only find a survey, but good research is to go into the fundamentals, what made that happen. Good research talks about how did this come to existence and what is the cause of this existence, and then finally, how does that existence enriches your life. And I think this is really where comes into this. It's nothing to do with only systematically digging something and finding and analyzing. No. The virtue of both. A good teacher has basically an attitude of research, but that research is supposed to be given to others and sharing. And that sharing would bring culture, and that culture brings attitudes to holistic civilization. And I think this is what I would think. Whenever there is a chance, we can do this kind of Zoom, take some time and talk about it. And then it should be shown to the students and then react and study proper. I think it's a good thing. Thanks for coming.